Hey everybody, welcome to Scary Saturdays with Kyle. And today we are talking about Armando de Osorio's Tombs of the Blind Dead. This was one of those franchises that I'd never heard about until like 2 or 3 years ago.
Love the title.
Yeah, terrific title. You can tell that it's kind of like taking from like Night of the Living Dead without just being flat out like that. It's one of those movies though, like when you hear about it, Knights Templar coming back from the dead every night to haunt the living, like, why don't you just write down Tombs of the Blind Dead to Kyle from the world? Because that's what you're selling to me. Real quick synopsis, as I mentioned, the group of 13th century knights who quested for eternal life now awaken at night and patrol their tombs as revenants. When their friend Virginia disappears near the tombs, Betty and Roger set out to find out what happened. Pretty standard story, pretty small in terms of what it's trying to accomplish, but when you've got atmosphere, you've got a lot. The movie has a terrific looking set piece, that kind of castle area where the knights hang out. Okay. A really engaging score that I think kind of highlights this ghostly etherealness to what the knights are.
Is it a synthetic score?
Yeah, it's like synthetic with kind of like that, like, kind of really low brow in there.
Theremin.
We need more of that right now, to be honest. It is the first in a 4-movie series with some of the most ridiculous titles you'll ever see, including Return of the Evil Dead, not related to Evil Dead, The Ghost Galleon, and Night of the Seagulls. I mean,
right.
You could have called it something normal, but you chose not to, and I appreciate that. It even also had kind of a semi-reboot called Curse of the Blind Dead, I believe it was, that came out in 2021. Not a great movie. This one, though, simplicity is key. You've got 3 main characters. You've got Betty, you've got Roger, and you've got Virginia. And you have this kind of interpersonal relationship that I found kind of engaging. Virginia's interested in Roger. She's on vacation with him. They get reintroduced to Betty, and Roger seems to turn his direction towards her. But then Virginia and Betty also had a former lesbian relationship. So you've got this interesting love triangle that is kind of at the grounds where the characters feel they have an emotional connection to each other. When Virginia goes missing, the 2 characters do feel bad because they inherently sent her away. So there is those interpersonal conflicts that do make us care a little bit more for the characters than I would have assumed. But then you bring in these monstrous characters. I love the makeup effects on the Knights Templar. I think they are just chilling and creepy. I love that they ride on these horses that are kind of dead, kind of alive. It's never really hinted at exactly where it is. And I like any movie that features a revenant. If you know what a revenant is, it is a spirit or animated corpse revived from death to hunt the living. It's a little bit different than a zombie or a ghost. These are specific spirits that are out there to kind of patrol the world that we're in and hunt us down. I love that they're kind of stuck in their little castle area, and that people who wander in end up getting ripped to shreds. That's appealing to me.
You should watch this right after watching The Church.
Yeah, it does kind of have a good feeling with the church in there. And Armando de Osorio has done a couple of interesting other films as well, including like Night of the Sorcerers, The Lorelei's Grasp, which has like some kind of like fish creature. He does some really odd movies in terms of the horror genre, but there's something about him that kind of keeps bringing me back in. And I think that's what's engaging. This is my favorite one of the movies of his that I've seen. And I think it kind of just boils down to these creatures are terrifying. I know that they're people in mass. The mouths don't move. The faces don't adjust. It's not really well done, but it is, And I think that's something that we have for a movie that is about 52 years old. It still looks great even now. I will point out to you, though, there are a couple different cuts of the movie. Synapse Films, I believe it was, released a Blu-ray just a couple of years ago, which has an extended cut of the film that I think is far superior to the one I streamed online a couple years ago. It features a little bit more backstory, a little bit more involvement in kind of the lesbian relationship, which was cut for most U.S. theaters. I think it just adds a lot more character to the film. The only thing that you have to note is there's a couple different ways to watch that extended cut because they didn't dub the added scenes for English. So if you watch it, you can watch it in 2 different versions, an entirely Spanish version or an English and Spanish version, where the extended scenes don't have dubbing, so the characters just speak Spanish for those. Either way didn't really affect me. I've seen both versions of the film, and I think that the extended cut in either of its dubbed forms works pretty well. Using the characters bilingual, So, but no, overall it's a movie I had a lot of fun with. This is one that's just like peak my kind of energy. I love that it's Italian while also kind of being Spanish influenced. It's got those elements that is, inherently going to be my, bread and butter. Fun fact, though, if you're able to, one other thing that's really great on the Synapse Blu-ray release of the film is the added opening of the film, where it was actually at one point titled Revenge from Planet Ape. Because of the success of Planet of the Apes, they shot a weird prologue to this movie about an ape society that has nothing to do with the movie. But it's definitely worth checking out because it's a little piece of kind of stupid horror classic cinema. So I really enjoyed Tombs of the Blind Dead. I'm very excited to go check out. I've never seen the 3 sequels, but if you have, let me know your favorite one down in the comments section below. Thank you so much for joining me as we talk about Tombs of the Blind Dead, and I inspired my new costume for Halloween this year, clearly. But next week, we're going to dive way back into the past. We're going to go back to the 1920s and beyond as we talk about the silent kind of documentary, Haxan. So join us next week for that.